OR Tambo Airport cash heist have been handed stiff sentences ranging between 15 and 25 years at the South Gauteng High Court. Acting Judge Mokgotsi, in delivering the judgment, said the accused showed no remorse. However, there were no extenuating circumstances to impose harsher sentences on them. Accused number 1, Sibusiso Job Monisi, was given 15 years sentence. Accused number 2, Raphael Prince Dube, received 25 years, while accused number 4, Matabata France Manaka, received 20 years, while some of the suspects are still at large. 2 million rand was stolen and was not recovered. Police are still investigating the case. Defence lawyers for accused number 1 and 2 have indicated that they will appeal the sentences handed down. Well, for more on the story, we have our reporter in studio, Nozintombi Mia, to just give us an update on what occurred. Thanks very much for joining us, Nozintombi.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good stuff. So, a lot going on there. Some people, have not actually been brought to book for the crimes they committed.
Yeah.
And then there was that range of sentencing. What was the rationale behind the judge's decision?
Right. So, just to give you context, a bit of background, there were initially about 8 to 9 suspects that were arrested, in particularly for this crime. However, the charges were dropped against several of the others, and eventually 4 of the accused were left. Last week, one of accused number 3 was acquitted of the crime because there was insufficient evidence, and his testimony was not recorded correctly based on what the arresting officer had done. So ultimately, the 3 convicts now, who obviously have now been convicted, were the ones who were held responsible for the heist that happened in March 2017. So what acting Judge Justice Mokgotsi said was that the 3 had not shown any remorse. They still pled not guilty up until the very bitter end. They believe that they did not commit a serious crime. They believe that what they did was just because they felt that their circumstances, their own personal circumstances, they came from poverty, they weren't making enough money. They felt that they were justified in appropriating money that didn't belong to them. So the judge then said that they had shown no remorse. However, because there were no guns used and there was nobody that was injured or hurt or killed, it was the money, the 27 bags that were taken of 20.7 million rand in banknotes from Standard Bank, and we know that that money was due to go to the United Kingdom, and it obviously didn't make its way to the United Kingdom, and that money, interestingly enough, is still at large because the rest of the suspects, police were not able to get a hold of them. They weren't able to catch them. The investigation on that sector is still continuing. So ultimately, these 3 convicts were then obviously held responsible for that heist that happened. The money is still not there. It's still at large. However, there still are some other suspects that have not been caught.
I vaguely remember when that happened last year, people were saying it must have been an inside job. How do you penetrate an airport like that? Are any of the people who've been charged and sentenced, are any of those people internal people?
Yes. What's funny is this entire operation was not so sophisticated, and it was planned meticulously. Accused number 1 and accused number 4 were 2 security guards for the private security company that was handling the money. And they had been given cell phones by the private security guard. They were employed with the private security at that time. They were told, this is what you need to do. There's 27 bags of cash. You need to drop it off at this particular location inside the OR Tambo, and you need to then make contact with the head office and then dispose of the cell phones. They didn't do that. What they did was they orchestrated this entire elaborate, it was almost like an Ocean's 11 type of, robbery, because they had 2 getaway cars. They had planned this already from December of 2016, and they had appropriated police officer uniforms, they had appropriated a police van, and they staged themselves being robbed by their co-suspects or their the fellow robbers that they were with, and they made it seem as though they were the victims. It was only when the evidence started coming to light where police started discovering that actually the 2 security officers who were the victims were actually part of the masterminding of this entire operation. So that really was quite interesting when the information started coming out and when the police were then saying that really this ultimately was an inside job.
More to ask, but not enough time. Thanks very much for that, Nozin Dombi. My colleague Nozin Dombi Mir, who's reporting on that cash heist sentencing earlier.